Hi, it's Tim Hagen from Progress Coaching, and welcome to another episode of Coaching Conversations. And I wanted to make you aware of something very cool that we're doing on a subscription basis, and we'll put a link in each one of our episodes. But every Wednesday, we're going to be doing what we call an audio podcast workshop. That workshop will be roughly about 14 to maybe 20 minutes per episode, with each month having a theme from a coaching model, using feedback strategically, to coaching self-awareness, and so on. So if you could look in the body or in the content description of each episode, and you will see a link where you can join this subscription. These are literally 4 workshops every month teaching specific strategies to address a particular area of workplace coaching as it relates, again, to things like awareness, motivation, teamwork, and what have you. Here's the cool thing. It's only $10 per month, and each month you will get a handout that we will follow along with. So we also give you a tool for you to take notes as we go through each episode. We hope you'll check it out.
You know, one of the healthiest things that I think we can all do is certainly learn from other thought leaders. And I just have to share this as a best practice, if you will. I have been reading the book Grit by Angela Duckworth. And I have to tell you, it's just so fascinating. And she talks extensively about effort. Now, we have a whole program. This is not a sales pitch, but we have a whole program called Coaching to Grit and Do You Have Grit? And we've built our own grit assessment. And for us, grit stands for guts, resilience, intensity, and tenacity. And in Angela's book, she talks about effort. And then she talks about, the power of habit and repetition and rituals and routines and becoming, positive creatures of habit. And, talking about our intention, but then also finding out what's our purpose. And I started to think about it. And I started to think to myself, wow, that's interesting. Because about 1.5 years ago, I did a assessment from a company, and we're certified with them, called The Motivators, which is a company in Utah, great company. And it's called Find Mojo. And out of 23 attributes, number 17, of my top, number 17 was money. And I thought, now that's weird. I'm an entrepreneur. And then after listening to Angela's book talking about purpose, my purpose is really to spread the gospel of coaching. I love coaching. And she then, in, I believe it's chapter 7 or 8, she talks about, kids. And I've coached, as I've used in some of my podcasts, I've coached, volleyball for on and off for 31 years. And I always love to share the story about the one dad who was really upset because I wasn't yelling at the kids because they weren't playing well. And he said, why aren't you yelling at the kids? They're playing terrible. And I said, well, first of all, they're not my kids. Second of all, we will get there. And he looked at me. He said, but why aren't you? And he was so frustrated. And I said, here's why. Practice will do its work. We just started. We will be a winning team by the end of the year. Out of 31 years, I've only had one losing season. And I've only had, in all the years I've coached, only one kid quit. So what it teaches me is that positive relationship with something called effort. And in her book, and I just love this, I just cannot tell you how much I love when I was listening to her in her audiobook on Audible, and I would encourage you to get it. It is fantastic. She talks about infants. What do infants do when they fall down or they can't stand up or they can't sit up? They keep trying, they keep trying, they keep trying. And then she makes an observation of kids, and that when kids don't win or they have a failure, and I don't like to use the term failure, but let's call it a temporary setback, whatever your vernacular is, and the parents show an expression. And I literally, listening to this, I pulled over and started to take notes, because this is exactly what we teach in Progress Coaching. In Progress Coaching, we talk about effort. And when you first start coaching someone, praise their effort so they keep going. And then when I'm listening to Angela's book, that's what leads to the rituals, the habits. But that also leads to the interest and hopefully helping someone find their purpose. And it gives you that, it gave me an aha moment. I contend most people don't have grit. Now, I will tell you, I have grit. I'm not so sure I have 100% grit in every area, but I will tell you I have grit for the most part. And it was so interesting. And then she talked about pleasure. And she talked about that gritty people are more motivated by purpose than pleasure. And it went back to that motivator. Number 17 was money. My purpose is to teach people how to coach, is to come up with solutions for coaching scenarios, for workplace scenarios. And one of the great stories that she tells that goes back to, which is something I've talked about for 30 years. We inherit people's children in the workplace. If you have a kid whose parents always complain to the coach and always complain to the teacher about the grade, and the kids see this, and they do see it, the kid ultimately says what? Well, it can't be me. It's got to be, I don't think the teacher likes me. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that through the years. Or the coach doesn't like me. Nobody goes into teaching and coaching with the goal of inevitably meeting your child to end up disliking them. And she tells this story about Katie Ledecky and how she had her first race and she was 6 and she was holding on to the swim dividers and she got done and her father said, "Did you enjoy it?" She goes, "That was so much fun." He didn't show a frown because she didn't win. He didn't yell at her because she was grabbing the lane dividers, because she was struggling. She's our most celebrated Olympian. See, we don't talk about it, but there are defining moments. I'll share one with you on a personal level. My son was playing Little League, and back then they had 3 different age groups all playing together. He was in the younger group. He was not a great baseball player. And I remember he did not have a hit. And I remember his coach, Jeff, after every at-bat when he would strike out, he could see the disappointment in my son. He'd go up to me and said, "Look, you're taking great swings. You're a little bit behind the pitch, but I love your swing." And Liam always left those discussions with a smile on his face. And then he had another coach, Bill, that went into the upper ages, and he finally got his first hit. And he had that aha moment. He learned the value of effort. He learned the value of repetition. He learned the value that Angela dedicates a whole chapter to, and we don't talk about it enough. Practice. See, when people come to me and they say, "Tim, we want to create a coaching culture. We've got to get our leaders to engage. We have turnover and all these things." And they always ask me, "What's the key?" I said, practice. First, they got to show effort. Practice will take care of the rest. When you're coaching somebody who has body odor, when you're coaching someone who wants to get promoted because they started next Friday, and oh, by the way, they're the nephew of the CEO. You're coaching 2 top talent where you don't have promotions to work more effectively together because they argue all the time. All 3 of those scenarios create the need for conversation coaching skills. We cannot just show up and throw up. We have to practice coaching. You have to have a framework. The reason I wanted to share this is because I think what is so critical is that when you think about Angela's work, again, I've never met Angela, don't know her, but I cannot put it down. And grit, according to her, is the number 1 determinant of success. It's passion and perseverance over a period of time. We have so much fight or flight battles in our workplace. How often do we hear, "Oh, that's hard. Well, I don't know. How long will that take? Will I get paid extra?" Ask your people something. If you want to know if they have grit, ask them one fundamental question. What are you doing outside of work to improve you in your career? And if they hesitate, the answer is nothing. That's not a criticism. That's our opportunity to help our people. First of all, get the book Grit by Angela Duckworth. Number 2, hold on to the principles of progress coaching. Where there's effort, there will be progress. Where there's progress, pinpoint it, acknowledge it. Where there's effort, progress, it will lead to something called more predictable, sustainable results. Thank you for listening to another episode of Coaching Conversations by Tim Hagen and Progress Coaching. Now, our company is always coming out with new and innovative solutions to help leaders coach their employees. And recently, we just created a new service called Coach to You, where leaders can pick and choose topics and assign 7 to 21-day programs for employees to learn and, more importantly, apply actions and then reflect and share what they're going to do going forward as a result of the learning. It's called Coach to You. We're literally bringing coaching to your employees. If you're intrigued, we'll have a link in each one of our episodes where you can get more information. And again, thank you so much for listening to another episode.